The scent hit me first. Unfamiliar perfume lingering in my living room like an uninvited guest. Sweet, cloying, definitely not mine. I stood frozen in the doorway, keys still dangling from my fingers as my eyes traced the evidence scattered across our cream-colored couch. A wine glass with a perfect crimson lip print. A silk scarf in deep purple, carelessly draped over the armrest. The half-empty bottle of Cabernet that Travis and I had been saving for our anniversary. I'm Skylar, and this is the moment my carefully constructed life began to crack. My hands didn't shake as I set down my purse and took out my phone. Click, click, click. 3 perfect photos of someone else's presence in my home. The timestamps would matter later, I knew that much. 4 years of marriage had taught me to document everything, even if I didn't yet understand why. Mommy. Mason's voice echoed from the hallway where Mrs. Peterson, our elderly neighbor, held his small hand. We made cookies. I forced my face into something resembling normalcy. That's wonderful, sweetheart. I scooped him up, breathing in the simple comfort of his baby shampoo and sugar-sweet breath. Thank you for watching him, Mrs. Peterson. I really appreciate you picking him up when the daycare called. Anytime, dear. Though Travis should have answered his phone. I tried him 3 times before calling you. Of course he didn't answer. He was too busy entertaining his guest. After Mrs. Peterson left, I settled Mason with his toys in his room and returned to the living room. My fingers traced the lip print on the glass, and I wondered if she'd worn the same shade when she kissed my husband. The thought made my stomach turn. My phone buzzed. Travis. Hey, babe. Running late at the office? Don't wait up. The lie settled in my chest like ice. I typed back, no problem. Hope the meeting goes well. I didn't mention finding his little souvenir collection. Didn't tell him I'd come home early because Mason had a fever. Didn't say I knew exactly what kind of meeting kept him busy. Instead, I walked to our bedroom and opened his closet. The evidence was there, too. A receipt from La Maison tucked into his jacket pocket, dated last Tuesday when he'd claimed to be at a client dinner. $200 for wine and dessert. Romantic. My phone buzzed again. Sarah this time. How's Mason feeling? Better. Listen, can you come over tomorrow? I need your help with something. Of course. Everything okay? I stared at the purple scarf, its silk catching the late afternoon light. No, but it will be. Mason's voice called from his room. Mommy, can we have mac and cheese? Coming, baby. I called back, then quickly typed to Sarah. I'll explain tomorrow. Bring your laptop and that real estate contact of yours. I tucked the scarf into my drawer and washed the wine glass, erasing the physical evidence but keeping the photos safe in my phone. Travis wanted to play games? Fine. But he'd forgotten something crucial about me. I learned strategy at my father's knee, watching him build his real estate empire from nothing. And I'd inherited more than just his eyes. That night, as I tucked Mason into bed, he asked, Is Daddy coming home to read my story? Not tonight, sweetie. I kissed his forehead, still slightly warm. But don't worry, Mommy's going to make sure everything's okay. I sat in the darkness of his room long after he fell asleep, planning my next moves like pieces on a chessboard. Travis thought he was being clever, but he'd made a fatal mistake. He'd underestimated me, and by the time I was done, he'd learn exactly what that meant. The game was just beginning, and I intended to win. The key clicked in the lock of my parents' Victorian home. My home now, though I still couldn't think of it that way. 2 years after their accident, their presence lingered in every corner. Dad's reading glasses on his desk, Mom's gardening magazine collection still arranged by season. I'd barely touched anything since the funeral. Sarah's heels clicked against the hardwood floors behind me. You're sure about this? Travis wants to sell it. My voice came out harder than I intended. He's been pushing harder lately. Says we could use the money for investments. Bastard. Sarah moved past me into the study, her laptop tucked under her arm. Your parents left this house to you specifically, not to both of you. He can't force a sale. I traced my fingers along the mahogany desk where Dad had taught me about property values and market trends. He's found a way. I saw the paperwork he tried to hide. He's already talking to developers. Sarah's fingers flew across her keyboard. I've pulled up the deed records. There's something weird here, Sky. The ownership status changed last month. My stomach dropped. What? It shows a transfer of partial interest to... She squinted at the screen. Evelyn Blackwood? Through some kind of holding company. The name meant nothing to me, but the timing, right when Travis started staying late at the office, that meant everything. My phone buzzed. Travis. I ignored it. Look at this. Sarah turned her laptop around. Evelyn Blackwood, CEO of Blackwood Development. They specialize in historic property renovation. Her air quotes dripped with skepticism. A woman's face stared back at me from the company website. Elegant, mid-40s with a shark smile. Something about her eyes reminded me of that purple scarf. She's connected to him somehow, I said. The affair, the sudden interest in selling, it's all linked. Sky. Sarah hesitated. There's more. Your brother Lucas called me yesterday. He's worried about some investments Travis convinced him to make. The betrayal twisted deeper. What investments? Some kind of property development fund. Lucas said Travis promised guaranteed returns, but he's having trouble getting straight answers about where the money went. My phone buzzed again. This time a text. Where are you? We need to talk about the house. I typed back, busy with Mason. Another lie in our growing collection. Sarah watched me, concern etched on her face. What are you thinking? I walked to the window, looking out at Mom's rose garden. The bushes were overgrown now, but still blooming, stubborn like she'd been. I'm thinking it's time to do what Dad taught me. Follow the money. And Mason? Is exactly why I can't let Travis destroy everything my parents built. I turned back to her. Can your real estate contact help us trace these property transfers? Already texting him. Sarah's phone chimed. He can meet tomorrow, but Sky, if Travis is involved in something shady, then I need proof. I pulled out my own phone and scrolled through recent photos. The wine glass, the scarf, the receipt. And I need to know who this Evelyn Blackwood really is. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I watched Travis stride up the walkway, his face set in lines of frustration I'd grown too familiar with lately. Back door. I whispered to Sarah. Take the laptop. I'll handle him. She squeezed my arm as she slipped out. Be careful. I stood in the study, surrounded by my parents' memories, and waited for the front door to open. Travis thought he was playing a clever game, but he'd forgotten something crucial. This house wasn't just property to me. It was my heritage, my son's future, and the last piece of my parents I had left. The door opened. Travis's footsteps echoed through the hall. Skylar? His voice carried a note of warning. We need to talk about some papers I need you to sign. I touched Dad's old fountain pen, still sitting in its holder. Yes, I called back. I think we do. Game on. Travis stood in my parents' study, his suit jacket draped over Dad's chair like he owned it. The sight made my fingers curl into fists. You weren't supposed to find out like this, he said, sliding papers across the mahogany desk. But since you're here, we might as well discuss the offer. I didn't touch the documents. Which offer? The one to sell my family's home or the one you made to my brother? His pause was barely perceptible, but I caught it. Lucas told you? He's not the only one who's been asking questions. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the photo of the wine glass. Like, who's been helping you make these investment decisions? The color drained from his face when he saw the image. Sky. Is it Evelyn Blackwood? The name hit him like a physical blow. Or maybe I should ask her protege. Chloe, isn't it? A woman's laugh drifted through the open window. Rich, confident, closer than it should be. Travis's eyes darted toward the sound. You brought her here? My voice came out whisper quiet. Dangerous. The front door opened. High heels clicked on hardwood. Travis? The car's waiting. Oh. She was younger than I expected. Sleek blonde hair, expensive dress, wearing the same shade of lipstick that had stained my wine glass. Behind her stood an older woman, Evelyn Blackwood herself, looking exactly like her website photo. Mrs. Henderson. Evelyn's smile didn't reach her eyes. We were hoping to discuss this professionally, like how you professionally helped my husband steal my brother's savings. Travis stepped forward. Nobody stole anything. It's a legitimate investment opportunity. The returns are a lie. I pulled up the property records Sarah had found. Just like the paperwork you forged to transfer partial ownership of this house. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? You don't understand business, he snapped. This house is just sitting here, a waste of valuable property. Evelyn's company can what? Turn my parents' home into condos? Use it to scam more people like Lucas? Chloe laughed, the sound grating. God, you're so provincial. This is why he needed someone who understands ambition. My phone buzzed. Sarah's text. Police contact confirmed fraud reports against Blackwood Dev. Evidence incoming. Ambition? I smiled, feeling the weight of Dad's fountain pen in my hand. Let me show you what ambition looks like. I pressed play on the recording app that had been running since I entered the house. Travis's confession about Lucas's investment played clearly through the speaker. Evelyn's composed mask cracked. Turn that off. Why? Worried about what comes next? The part where you discuss the forged documents or the other investors you've defrauded? You're bluffing, Travis said, but his voice shook. Am I? Ask your father, Travis. He's been helping me gather evidence for weeks. Turns out he's not thrilled about his son becoming a con artist. Chloe grabbed her purse. We're leaving. Now. No. I blocked the doorway. You're staying right here until the detective Sarah called finishes reviewing those fraud reports. He seemed very interested in Blackwood Development's history. Evelyn's face hardened. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you're doing. Actually, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting what's mine. I met Travis's eyes. All of it. The house, Mason's future, my brother's investment. Everything you tried to steal. Blue lights flashed outside the window. Travis lunged for the papers on the desk, but I was faster. Years of watching my father build his business legally, ethically, had taught me more than Travis ever understood. It's over, I said as footsteps approached the front door. And Travis? I want a divorce. The look of defeat on his face should have felt like victory. Instead, I felt only a cold certainty that I'd done what needed to be done. For Mason, for my parents' legacy, for myself. As the detective entered, I thought of Mason, safe at Sarah's house, unaware that his world was changing. I'd tell him tomorrow, help him understand as best I could. But for now, I watched Travis's carefully constructed scheme crumble and felt the weight of my parents' absence lift just a little. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. Sometimes it's about protection. And I'd protected what mattered most. Mason's dinosaur backpack looked too small against the pile of hastily packed suitcases. He clutched his favorite T-Rex, watching me with eyes too serious for a 4-year-old. Are we going on vacation, Mommy? The bruise on my wrist, hidden beneath my sleeve where Travis had grabbed me during our confrontation, throbbed with my pulse. Something like that, baby. We're going to stay with Aunt Sarah for a while. My phone lit up with another message from Travis's father, Henry. He's threatening legal action. Says he has proof you knew about the investments. Be careful. The doorbell rang. Sarah stood there, car keys in hand, face grim. Henry called. You need to see this. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were photos, me at the family home, meeting with Sarah's real estate contact, screenshots of emails I'd never written authorizing property transfers, all expertly forged. Evelyn's good, Sarah said quietly. She's setting you up to take the fall if the investment scheme goes south. Mason tugged at my sleeve. Can I bring my blocks? Of course, sweetheart. I forced a smile. Go pick your favorites. As soon as he was out of earshot, I turned to Sarah. How bad? Lucas called. The FBI is investigating Blackwood development. If these forged documents surface... She didn't need to finish. My phone buzzed again. Travis, come home. We can fix this. Think about Mason. The threat beneath the concern was clear. I deleted the message. A car pulled into our driveway, Henry's Mercedes. Travis's father stepped out, looking older than his 60 years. Skylar. He held up a USB drive. You need to see what I found in Travis's home office. We gathered around Sarah's laptop. Spreadsheets, emails, bank transfers, a web of fraud with my forged signature woven throughout. But there was something else. Wait, I said. Go back to that email. It was from my parents' old email account, dated 2 months after their accident, an account that should have been closed. Someone's been using their identity, Henry said, to authorize transfers, validate documents. Travis and Evelyn didn't just forge your signature, they've been ghosting your parents. The violation hit deeper than the affair, then the theft. They'd stolen not just money and property, but my parents' memory itself. Mason's small voice came from the doorway. Daddy's here. Travis stood on our front lawn, Chloe waiting in her car at the curb. He looked up at the window, eyes meeting mine. Take Mason upstairs, I told Sarah. To Henry, I added, how much time do I have before those documents surface? 24 hours, maybe less. Evelyn's getting nervous. She'll move soon. I thought of my father's lessons about business, about protecting what matters, about how sometimes the best defense is making your opponent reveal their own weakness. Send everything to your FBI contact, I said. But first, I need you to make some calls. If they want to use my parents against me, let's show them exactly what the Henderson name still means in this town. Henry nodded, understanding darkening his features. Travis doesn't know I'm helping you. Keep it that way. I watched Travis pace the lawn, phone pressed to his ear. He made this about family. Now he'll learn what that really means. Sarah returned without Mason. He's playing in my old room. Sky, whatever you're planning. I'm not planning anything. I touched the bruise on my wrist. I'm finishing what they started, but this time we're playing by my rules. Travis's voice carried through the window. Just give me an hour. I can convince her. I picked up my phone and dialed Lucas's number. My brother answered on the first ring. You ready? I asked. Everything's in place, just like Dad taught us. I watched Travis below, still believing he held all the cards, still thinking he knew what I was capable of. His next move would be desperate, probably violent. But I'd learned from the best. My parents hadn't just left me a house. They'd left me their strength. And I intended to use it. Sarah's guest room felt like a war room. Laptops, documents, and coffee cups covered every surface. Mason slept down the hall, his dinosaur nightlight casting shadows while we planned our next move. The board meeting's tomorrow, Henry said, spreading out the shareholder documents. Evelyn's planning to present evidence that you've been embezzling funds through your parents' estate. I studied the forged paperwork. My mother's signature looked perfect. Too perfect. They've been planning this for months. Lucas's voice crackled through the speakerphone. The FBI agent says they need more time to build their case. If Evelyn presents those documents first, I'll be arrested, I finished. And Travis gets everything. The house, custody of Mason, control of the estate. Sarah's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. Sky. Evelyn just posted bail for Travis. My hand instinctively went to my bruised wrist. The restraining order hadn't even been processed yet. He's not alone, Sarah continued. Chloe's with him, and they're heading to your parents' house. The security camera feed from the Victorian showed them forcing open the back door. Travis knew about the spare key behind the loose brick. Of course he did. I'd trusted him with everything once. They're looking for something specific, Henry observed, watching Travis tear through Dad's study. Something they need before tomorrow's meeting. The realization hit like ice water. Dad's ledger, the real one. Lucas's sharp intake of breath crackled through the phone. The one with all his notes about the property deals? I thought that was lost in the accident. No. I grabbed my keys. Mom showed me where they hid it right before she said I'd know when to use it. Skylar, wait. Henry caught my arm. If you go there now, they'll destroy everything my parents built. I pulled away. I won't let that happen. Sarah blocked the door. At least let me call the police. By the time they arrive, Travis will have what he wants. I met her eyes. You know what he's capable of now. The security feed showed Travis and Chloe methodically destroying the study. Books thrown, drawers emptied, pictures smashed. Each crash felt like a physical blow. Stay with Mason, I told Sarah. If I'm not back in an hour, don't. She hugged me fiercely. Just don't. The drive to my parents' house was a blur. Streetlights streaked past like accusations. What kind of mother leaves her child to confront her abuser? What kind of daughter lets thieves destroy her parents' legacy? My father's voice echoed in my memory. Sometimes protecting what matters means risking everything. Travis's car sat in the driveway, Chloe behind the wheel, engine running. Our eyes met through the windshield. She smiled, reaching for her phone. I slipped in through the garden entrance, my childhood route for sneaking out. The house creaked with familiar sounds, but now they felt like warnings. Travis's voice drifted down from upstairs. It has to be here somewhere. Evelyn says we need proof of the original deals. Maybe in the master bedroom? Chloe called back. Rich people love hidden safes. They didn't know. Mom and Dad never trusted safes. Too obvious, Dad always said. The best hiding place is one nobody thinks to question. I moved silently through the kitchen, past the shattered family photos, toward the one place they'd never look. Mom's garden shrine. A simple wooden cabinet filled with seed packets and tools. The false bottom had fooled even me, until she showed me the trick. The ledger waited there, wrapped in plastic, exactly as she'd left it. Inside were records of every legitimate deal, every proper transaction, and notes about which developers had tried to force sales through fraud, including Evelyn Blackwood, from 15 years ago. Footsteps creaked overhead. I clutched the ledger, heart pounding. I could slip out now, unnoticed. Safe. But Mom's favorite photo lay shattered on the floor. The three of us in her garden, laughing. They'd destroyed enough. I pulled out my phone and dialed Lucas. Tell Henry to call the board. Emergency meeting. Tonight. Sky, it's time they learned what happens when you threaten a Henderson. The stairs creaked. Travis was coming down. Game on. The boardroom lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. 15 faces stared back at me. Old men in expensive suits who'd known my father, who'd attended his funeral, who now sat in judgment as Evelyn Blackwood presented her case. As you can see, Evelyn gestured to the projection screen, the transfer documents clearly show Mrs. Henderson's involvement in the fraudulent activities. My father's ledger felt heavy in my bag. One move could end this, but timing was everything. Travis sat beside Evelyn, not meeting my eyes. The bruise on my wrist had darkened to purple, visible now beneath my sleeve. I caught Henry's slight nod from across the room. Everything was ready. Furthermore, Evelyn continued, we have evidence of offshore accounts. The boardroom door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, badges raised. Evelyn Blackwood, the lead agent announced, we have a warrant for your arrest. The chaos that erupted was almost beautiful. Almost. Then Chloe screamed from the hallway, he has your son. The world stopped. My phone lit up with Sarah's text. Travis broke in, took Mason. I'm so sorry, police following. The ledger, the evidence, the arrests, none of it mattered anymore. I ran. Travis's car screeched out of the parking garage, Mason's terrified face pressed against the back window. My son's mouth formed one word. Mommy. I jumped into Henry's Mercedes, keys already in hand. He'd planned for this, knowing his son better than I had. The engine roared to life. Skylar, wait! Lucas's voice crackled through my phone. Police are in pursuit. Don't. I ended the call. Traffic blurred past as I followed Travis's taillights. He was heading toward the harbor, toward Evelyn's private yacht. Their escape plan, now desperate and accelerated. Rain started falling, making the roads slick. Travis took a corner too fast, fishtailing. Mason's scream carried through the closed windows. "Pull over!" I shouted uselessly. "Think about your son." Travis's response was to accelerate. In the passenger seat, I caught glimpses of Chloe's panicked face. She hadn't signed up for this level of crazy. The harbor appeared through the rain. Travis's car skidded to a stop near the private docks. He yanked Mason from the back seat, carrying him toward the yacht where lights already blazed. I abandoned Henry's car, running across wet concrete. "Travis, please." He spun, Mason struggling in his arms. "Stay back. This is your fault, all of it. If you just signed the papers, Daddy, you're hurting me." Mason's voice cracked with fear. Something shifted in Travis's eyes, something dark and desperate. "I can't go to prison. I won't." "Then let Mason go." I took a step closer. "Let him come to me and you can take the boat. I won't stop you." Chloe grabbed Travis's arm. "She's right. This is insane. He's just a child." Travis shoved her away. She slipped on the wet dock, falling hard. In that moment of distraction, Mason bit his father's hand and broke free. Everything slowed down. Mason running toward me, Travis lunging after him. The dock's edge slick with rain. My son's feet sliding. I dove forward as Mason fell. My fingers caught his jacket, but momentum carried us both over the edge. Cold water shocked my system. Mason's weight dragged us down. In the murky darkness, I heard my mother's voice. "Protect what matters most." I kicked hard, pushing Mason toward the surface, using the last of my strength. Hands reached down. Lucas's hands. I realized dimly. He must have followed me. Mason broke the surface, safe in his uncle's grip. But as I tried to follow, something caught my leg. Tangled dock line, pulling me deeper. The last thing I saw before darkness took me was Travis's face peering down from the dock, finally showing something like remorse. Then nothing. The hospital lights were too bright when I opened my eyes. Lucas sat beside me, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Mason?" My voice cracked. "Safe. With Sarah." He leaned forward. "Travis is in custody. They caught him trying to board the yacht." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by rage. "And Evelyn?" "That's why I need you to focus." Lucas showed me his phone. The FBI found something in her files about Mom and Dad's accident. The world tilted sideways. 2 years of grief suddenly felt like an open wound. It wasn't an accident. The words tasted like poison. Was it? Brake lines. Evelyn's company wanted their property holdings. When they wouldn't sell, he didn't need to finish. A nurse entered, checking my vitals. "You have another visitor. Police detective." The detective was older, weathered, with kind eyes that had seen too much. "Mrs. Henderson, we need your statement about the dock incident. But first, there's something you should know. Your husband's talking." Travis's confession played on a tablet. His voice shook as he detailed everything. The fraud, the affair, how Evelyn had orchestrated it all. How she'd promised him wealth beyond imagination if he helped pressure me into selling. "She said it would be easy." Travis's recorded voice cracked. "Like the Henderson accident. Just make it look natural." The detective paused the video. "We're offering him a deal in exchange for testimony against Blackwood Development, but we need your cooperation." I thought of Mason's terror on that dock, of my parents trapped in their car, of everything that had been stolen from us. "When?" "The DA's waiting. Now." Lucas helped me into a wheelchair. My body ached from the near drowning, but something burned hotter than pain. Purpose. The conference room was small. Travis sat handcuffed to the table, Evelyn beside him with her lawyer. She still wore her boardroom smile, but it cracked when she saw me. "Skylar," Travis started. "I never meant—" "Save it." I pulled out my father's ledger. You wanted this so badly? Read it. The lawyer reached for it, but I opened it myself. Page 47, Dad. The day Evelyn first tried to force a sale. He documented everything. Evelyn's smile vanished completely. That proves nothing. Maybe not alone, but combined with the brake line evidence, the fraud paper trail, the attempted kidnapping. I leaned forward. You really should have researched the Henderson family better. Dad taught us to keep records of everything. You can't prove I had anything to do with your parents. Her voice held a tremor now. No? I turned to Travis. Tell her what you told the FBI about her instructions, about making things look natural. Travis wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I had to protect myself. You weak little. She lunged across the table. The detective moved fast, restraining her. As they led her away, she screamed threats, promises of revenge, but all I could see was the fear in her eyes. The same fear my parents must have felt. The DA has everything he needs, the detective said. It's over. But it wasn't. Not quite. I wheeled closer to Travis. Mason asked about you yesterday. Wanted to know if bad daddies can become good daddies again. His shoulders shook. What did you tell him? The truth. That people make choices. And those choices have consequences. I placed the ledger on the table. You have a choice now. Help make this right, or let Evelyn drag you down with her. Why are you giving me this chance? Not for you. I thought of Mason's smile, so like my father's. For our son. Because he deserves to know that even when people fail us, justice doesn't have to mean destruction. I left Travis there, staring at the ledger that contained both his downfall and his potential redemption. Lucas wheeled me out into the sunshine, where Sarah waited with Mason. My son ran to me, careful of my injuries. Mommy, are the bad people gone? I held him close, breathing in his innocent trust. Yes, baby. And they can't hurt us anymore. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. Sometimes it's about protecting what matters most, even if that means showing mercy when you least want to. Dad would have understood that. The Victorian's front porch creaked under my feet as I fitted the key into the lock. Mason darted past me, his dinosaur backpack bouncing against his shoulders. Can I have my old room back? Of course, baby. I watched him race upstairs, his footsteps echoing through halls that finally felt alive again. Sarah helped me carry in the last box, marked simply, Mom's Things. We'd found it hidden in the attic during the final walkthrough of my old house with Travis. Henry called, she said, setting the box down. Travis's sentencing is tomorrow. I nodded, running my fingers along the box's dusty edges. Lucas is handling it. I need to be here. You sure? Through the window, I watched Mason in the backyard, carefully watering Mom's roses just like she'd taught him. Some had survived the neglect, stubbornly blooming despite everything. This is where we need to be. Sarah squeezed my hand and left me alone with the box. Inside, beneath old photos and keepsakes, I found an envelope with my name in Mom's handwriting. The paper was aged, like she'd written it years ago. My dearest Skylar, if you're reading this, you've already faced what I always feared. Someone trying to take what we built. Your father and I knew Evelyn wouldn't stop. We've left you everything you need to protect our legacy, but the real strength was always in you. Remember? Revenge is easy, but justice takes courage. Choose wisely. Love, Mom. My phone buzzed. A text from Travis. The DA offered 5 years. I'm taking it. Tell Mason I'm sorry. I deleted the message without responding. Some apologies couldn't be sent by text. The doorbell rang. Henry stood there, looking older but somehow lighter. The board approved your proposal. The Henderson Foundation for Ethics and Business Development is officially funded. Dad would have loved the irony. I invited him in, using Evelyn's seized assets to fund oversight and whistleblower protection. Travis asked me to give you this. He handed me an envelope. Said it was important. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Travis's signed confession about my parents' accident, more detailed than what he'd given the police. evidence that would ensure Evelyn never saw freedom again. Grandpa Henry, Mason's voice carried from the garden. Look at my flowers. Henry's eyes misted. May I? I nodded, watching him join Mason by the roses. They looked right together, proof that some bonds transcended the sins of others. In my father's study, everything was finally back in place. His glasses on the desk, Mom's magazines arranged by season, the ledger returned to its rightful spot. But something felt different. Lighter, clearer, like morning after a storm. I opened the wall safe behind his desk calendar, where he'd always kept important documents. Inside was one final surprise: adoption papers dated just weeks before their death. They'd been planning to adopt Lucas permanently, making official what love had already decided. My brother's footsteps in the doorway told me he'd known. Found them last week, he said quietly. Dad told me the night before the accident. They were going to tell you at Sunday dinner. I hugged him, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost and found in these past weeks. Sky? Mason called from the garden. Can we plant new flowers? Through the window, I watched my son kneeling in the dirt, Henry showing him how to prepare the soil, just like Mom had shown me. Behind them, the roses bloomed fierce and bright, survivors all. Coming, baby. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what hurt you. Sometimes it's about building something stronger in its place. Mom knew that. Now I did too. I joined my family in the garden, where new things were ready to grow.